So are we in a situation where Igor Shesterkin can basically just name his own price?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1115 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. So I want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So yesterday's episode, we went ahead and talked about what an Alexis Lafreniere contract extension could, would, and ultimately should and will look like, and obviously went through that in a lot of detail. And today we're going to do the same thing for Igor Shesterkin. And let me just say right off the bat here, Igor Shesterkin, when his contract is due after this upcoming season, he is going to want to be the highest paid goalie in the NHL, and he has every single right to ask for that. He's been absolutely amazing ever since the Rangers drafted him, just putting up video game-like numbers everywhere he's played, and off to just an awesome start to his NHL career. And to go through the numbers real quick, because, look, we know how good he is, and everybody knows these numbers are good, but they really are something to marvel at when you consider just how well he's done for the Rangers so far in his career. So 213 games, a .921 save percentage, a goals against average of .243. His goals saved above average for his career is 93.5, and he has 15 shutouts and obviously a Vezina to his name as well. As difficult as this is to believe, he takes his game to a whole nother level when it comes time to the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is obviously when you need your goalie the most. And he's already played 44 career Stanley Cup playoff games with the New York Rangers. He has gone 23-20, a .241 goals against average, and a .928 save percentage, both better, slightly better than his numbers in the regular season. And these past 3 years in the playoffs, his save percentage for 3 straight years now has always been between .926 and .931. This guy closes the door when it matters the most. And this past year in the playoffs might have honestly been his best. He went 10-6, .234 goals against average, a .926 save percentage. This included a .935 save percentage in the series, the 6 games played against the Florida Panthers. He did everything he could to help the Rangers steal that series. Rangers just were not able to pull it off. Another stat in Igor's favor is that the Rangers in their 16 playoff games this past season were outshot in 13 of them. And that stat can be somewhat misleading, especially when you're playing the Hurricanes and they just shoot from every angle, whether it's a good chance, a bad chance, whatever it might be. They just kind of throw the puck at the net no matter what. But still, they got outshot in 13 of the 16 games. The fact remains the same. He also had apparently 15.62 goals saved above expected in the postseason, that according to Evolving Hockey. And to kind of figure out what this is going to cost the Rangers and, how many years it might be and all that good stuff, first thing I want to do is compare him to the other top paid goalies in the NHL. Number one right now, believe it or not, is still technically Carey Price with his $10.5 million cap hit. After that, you've got Sergei Bobrovsky at $10 million. He just won the Stanley Cup for the first time in his career. Vasilevsky, another cup winner at 9.5. Hellebuck at 8.5. Sorokin at 8.25. Saros at 7.74. You've got Gibson at 6.4. Binnington at 6. Markstrom at 6. Grubauer, at 5.9. And then Igor at $5.67 million a season. That's what his current 4-year deal has paid him. He's going into the last year of that deal, and that's what it'll pay him next year as well, the $5.67 million cap hit. So you look at this list, Igor is only, as of right now, the 11th highest paid goalie in the sport. That will absolutely change after this upcoming season. There's no goalie really on this list that you can look at and say, yeah, that guy is definitely better than Igor Shesterkin. There is a case to be made that he is the absolute best. I know this past season he went through a rough patch, kind of along with the entire Ranger team. They all kind of slumped at the same time. It's basically the month of January. The beginning might have started at the very end of December, but really January is when it really stood out. They really struggled, and then they won 11-1 in February. So they obviously raided the ship, but Igor struggled there right along with basically all of his teammates. My hope going into any kind of a contract negotiation with Igor Shesterkin is that, and I want him to get his money. He deserves it, but I'm a fan of this team, and I recognize the fact that the salary cap is something that you have to navigate every season. And the less he takes, the more moves that the Rangers will be able to make when it comes to putting together a team that can contend and ultimately win a Stanley Cup championship. So my hope, I don't know if this is going to happen, but my hope is that Igor will be satisfied merely with being the highest paid goalie in the NHL. $10.6 million a season. I mentioned a second ago, carry price is at 10.5. $10.6 million, is that enough for Igor Shesterkin? I hope so. I have my fingers crossed, but it might not be. He might want significantly more than that. I saw a report, and I was unable to find it before I recorded this episode, but Igor's camp was apparently looking for him to get 14% of the Rangers' salary cap, which is just such a strange way to word it and a strange way to explain what you're looking for. I mean, why do you care what percent of the salary cap? Isn't it more about what you're taking home, what your paycheck looks like? I don't know. Just kind of a weird ask there, I thought, from Igor's camp. And again, I was unable to locate that exact number right before hitting record here. I tried, couldn't find it, but I remember it being somewhere in that ballpark. But the bottom line, you look at this situation, whether a contract is agreed to today, tomorrow, or hopefully at least at some point before the season begins, Igor Shesterkin basically has all the leverage because he's been that good. We talked about the numbers that he's put up in the regular season and certainly the playoffs as well. And the other big thing here, if you're the Rangers, and another reason why the Rangers have absolutely no leverage, what are your other options? I mean, okay, let's look in-house first. You got Jonathan Quick, did an awesome job last year. I think Ranger fans are really happy with him and really enjoyed him being a Ranger. He's 38 years old. You know, who knows if he's even going to play beyond this upcoming season. Louis Domingue, impending UFA after this season, career journeyman, not the answer. I like Domingue, great organizational depth, did a good job with the Wolfpack, not the answer. Dylan Garand, former 4th-round pick by the Rangers. They like him, and he does seem to be getting a little bit better with every passing season in the AHL, and he was actually up for one game this past year because Igor and Quick were both injured for the same game. So Louis Domingue started, and Garand backed him up. So Garand never got into the game. But, I mean, there's nothing that he's doing right now. He's done all right, but there's nothing that screams franchise goalie. Give this guy the keys to the kingdom, and I just don't think the Rangers are going to do that. And as far as other free agents after this upcoming season, there's some good names. You know, there's some solid goalies out there. You've got Linus Ullmark, you've got UC Saros, you've got Aiden Hill, and our old friend, Alex Georgiev. All those players will be free agents, and those are probably the best ones of the free agent bunch, those 4 that I just mentioned. But I don't want any of those guys over Igor Shesterkin. Do you? I mean, they're good goalies, take nothing away, and you know, they might be able to get the job done for the Rangers, but Igor's our guy. He's the guy that's been standing on his head and the guy that I think gives this Ranger team the best chance to ultimately win a Stanley Cup championship. So I'll say this. I feel like there are going to be some nervous moments between the Rangers and Igor Shesterkin and the fans. I don't know. It doesn't sound like anything is imminent. We haven't really seen any reports about the Rangers and Igor working toward a contract extension. You know, Igor had that funny moment during breakup day where he said, I think he said he doesn't speak English when he was asked about signing an extension. But still, it's going to make all of us very nervous, I think, until Igor does put pen to paper. I'm kind of just assuming that all Ranger fans want him back. I realize it can't be, you know, a blank check and you can't go up to like 15 million or something like that. But I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Is there any, you know, line in the sand that you would draw? Is there any number that you wouldn't go above when it comes to Igor Shesterkin? Let me know in the comment section. Curious to see what you think there. But I do think eventually an agreement will be reached. Igor will stay. Could be another situation, though. We talked about this with Lafreniere in yesterday's episode. In order to sweeten the pot a little bit for Igor Shesterkin, in order to get him to take as little money per season as possible, that full no-move clause might come into play for Igor Shesterkin the way that it has for other Ranger players that have signed contracts with this team. That's one key way that you can keep the average annual value under control. Maybe you do one where you sign him to a long-term extension. He is 28 years old, or he was when the season ended. I don't know if he's had a birthday recently or not. But bottom line, late 20s. If you sign him to, say, like a 7-year deal, that takes him up to 35. I mean, he's starting to get up there a little bit, but certainly not ancient. I think that would be fine as far as, you know, the length is concerned. Maybe you can do a deal where he has a full no-move clause for every season except for the last season of his contract. Because if that happens, and say it's impossible to know where the Rangers are going to be 7 years from now. I mean, we can really dive into it deeply in a future episode if we want to try that, but that's very difficult to predict. But if the Rangers are in a situation where Igor's in the last year of his contract and the Rangers are not contending, I think at that point you'd want to be able to flip him, trade him to a contender, and you know, do a rebuild, if the Rangers are looking to rebuild at that point in time. And again, it's so difficult to predict that far down the line, but I would like to keep the full no move out of the last year of any Igor Shesterkin extension. But, again, you can do that to sweeten the pot and get him to take less. Again, he is going to want to be the highest paid goalie in NHL history, and he has every right to ask for that. These contracts get bigger and bigger. And he's better than like just about every one of those goalies that are currently making more money than he is. But if you're the Rangers, with Lafreniere, I don't think that you have to sign an extension now because of the fact that he is not a UFA when the season ends. Igor is, though. Igor is a UFA when this following season concludes. And with that being the case, I think it makes all the sense in the world for the Rangers to sit down with Igor Shesterkin, figure out a way to get something good done. There's going to be some hand-wringing. There's going to be some back and forth as far as the Rangers and Igor Shesterkin and his camp and what demands they have and how much the Rangers want to give him and all that good stuff. But I think you got to get this done before this upcoming season. Odds are he'll have another excellent season. He could probably ask for even more, and then he'll be right there as far as being an unrestricted free agent for the following season. And at that point, anybody can bid on him, and if you're the Rangers, you just don't want to let it get to that point. The problem is Igor and his camp, they know that too. They know that if he becomes a UFA next offseason, the Rangers are really going to have to pony up the dough. I would assume that Igor Shesterkin wants to stay a Ranger. I can't say that for sure, though, but, it's obviously gone well for him here. He can handle the bright lights. He gets it done in the playoffs, and he's coming off a season where the Rangers have the best record in the league. He can contend for a Stanley Cup championship as a member of this team as well. But I can't speak for Igor. We'll see how it goes. But again, I think if you're the Rangers, you really got to sit down and try to figure this out right here, right now, before the start of this upcoming season. So we're going to keep everything rolling. Going to switch gears in just a second. I want to shift our attention to another unrestricted free agent who is still available, somebody that was a high draft pick and it hasn't really panned out for him so far, but I want to talk about this player at least a little bit. And then we're also going to talk about Chris Kreider and Matt Rempe. They're both going to be playing a hockey game next week. Actually, 1 week to the day as I'm recording this. It's Thursday, the 18th as I'm recording this. So they will be playing in a hockey game 1 week from today. And I'll explain what I mean by that a little bit later in today's episode. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home those huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, we just want to take a minute to thank everybody, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And for the everydayers, you guys are definitely going to want to stick around. We're going to be doing a crossover episode at some point next week. Not sure what date it'll drop just yet, but we're going to talk about some things that have been going on between the Rangers and the Red Wings. We're doing a crossover with Locked On Red Wings. A lot of former Rangers have signed with Detroit. We're going to be talking about those players, and also that Trouba trade that may or may not have been on the table, may or may not have been close to happening. I want to get their perspective on it and see if either of the Locked On Red Wings hosts would have been interested in acquiring Jacob Trouba from the Rangers. But we're going to keep everything rolling right now, shifting gears a little bit, like I said, to, and as of now, still unrestricted free agents, and that is going to be Filip Zadina. And let me just say, I've been talking about this on and off, but we're looking at the unrestricted free agents that have kind of lingered out there ever since free agency began, the guys that do not have a contract. None of these players are perfect. None of them would guarantee the Rangers are going to win the Stanley Cup or anything like that, but there are some intriguing names out there, and we're going to at least take a look at some of them. It's difficult to picture the Rangers signing any of them just because of the salary cap. Once Ryan Lindgren is under contract, there's barely going to be anything left. And honestly, unless they do something like, they ultimately do trade Jacob Trouba, or maybe Capo Caco gets traded, I don't see them adding anyone, but it's not impossible. Certainly not impossible. And like I said, I want to focus today on Filip Zadina. We already covered Daniel Sprong during one of these segments, and I think he's probably at the top of my wish list as far as UFAs that are still out there. Not a perfect player, but coming off a couple of strong seasons the last 2 years. But Zadina, He is 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, won't turn 25 years old until November. So that already kind of gets my attention that he's quite a bit younger than a lot of the other UFAs that are still available out there. And he was the number 6 overall pick by the Detroit Red Wings back in 2018. He spent 5 seasons with Detroit and then played last year with the San Jose Sharks. These teams are not exactly world beaters. And this is something that I think makes Zadina at least a little bit intriguing. The numbers are not pretty, and we'll get to those in a second. But he has done nothing but play for terrible teams since he's been in the NHL. Maybe that last season with Detroit, things were starting to turn around a little bit. But you guys remember how down and out Detroit was just a couple of years ago, and they're now a team on the rise, and they've got some exciting players and probably some high aspirations for this upcoming seasons. But when he was there, and granted, he's a part of this too, but Detroit was a terrible team. I mean, they lost like about 4 times as many games as they won the one season. So there's that. And then, of course, the Sharks last year, far and away, hands down, the worst team in the NHL. So if you're in the Ranger front office or you're Chris Drury or whatever it might be, maybe there's a little part of you that looks at a player like this and you see that there is some talent there. And obviously teams thought highly enough of him that he was a top 10 overall pick. Once again, number 6 to Detroit. Maybe you think this is somebody that needs to be on a better team or in order to produce. And needless to say, the Rangers would far and away be the best team that he's ever played for in his NHL career to date. So maybe at that point, you think he's worth a 1-year flyer, worth $1 million a season or high 6 figures, whatever it might take. But I mentioned this a second ago. His numbers are not pretty. This is somebody that was expected to produce offensively, has done anything but that. You look at his total numbers in the NHL, 262 games, just 41 goals and 50 assists. So just 91 points in 262 games. You're talking about basically a third of a point per game player. He is also, I did do a double take on this. He is a minus 95 in 6 seasons. Now, again, a lot of that can be chalked up to the fact that he has done nothing but play for bad teams, but that is a staggering number. We know that it's not a perfect stat either, but I mean, your eyebrows have to go up. Minus 95 in 6 years. That is really something else. He's averaged 14 minutes and 28 seconds of ice time, 112 block shots, 173 hits, and 103 takeaways against 102 giveaways. He was also placed on waivers by the Red Wings in July of 2023, so they gave up on him after 5 seasons, just didn't think it was ever going to come together for him. The final 2 years of his contract were terminated, and he signed a 1-year deal with the Sharks for $1.1 million this past offseason. And 1 year with the Sharks, 72 games, 13 goals, 10 assists, and was a minus 44. That is just incredible. Zadina was not tendered a qualifying offer by the Sharks during this offseason, the one that's ongoing right now. So that made him an unrestricted free agent, and he has remained a UFA ever since that happened. You got to figure it would not take a lot to sign this guy, especially at this stage of free agency. Maybe Zadina would prefer a 1-year deal. And I mean, he's not going to get any more than that, but maybe he would actually prefer a 1-year deal just because he has to try to reestablish his value and try to take one of those prove-it contracts. And maybe a team like the Rangers would be appealing for Zadina. I'm just not so sure Zadina is going to be appealing for the New York Rangers, but we'll see. The most that he could possibly get is like $1.2 million. His last deal with the Sharks was $1.1 million, so probably somewhere in that ballpark. But my question to you guys, and I'm going to answer it myself here, but you can feel free to weigh in. Is it worth it to bring in Filip Zadina and take a flyer and kind of take a chance on a reclamation project here? In theory, it's not a terrible idea because, again, he is just 24 years old. He obviously had some talent and put up some numbers in other places that made you think that this guy could be a big-time player in the NHL. Hasn't come to fruition yet. But my biggest reason for not wanting the Rangers to do this is that I don't want Filip Zadina, who thus far has just not gotten it done in the NHL. I mean, we have to be honest here. That's just a fact. I don't want him taking up a roster spot that could go to somebody like Brandon Othmann or go to somebody like Brett Berard. We saw Othmann for 3 games last year, and I think he has a good chance of making the team. Brett Berard, he's on his way, man. This guy, his stock continues to rise every single season. He's always been kind of a personal favorite of mine. I don't want to see Filip Zadina over one of them. I mean, it's something that you could do, but I don't see the Rangers doing it. It's not something that I think they should be desperate to do. I do think there's at least some upside because, again, of the high draft pick and the fact that he is still very young. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe if he's willing to sign a 2-way deal where he can spend some time in the AHL. Not sure if he'd be up for that. The last 4 seasons combined, he's only played 2 AHL games. So we shall see. Food for thought again, but I got to be honest, even though we're talking about him here, I can't get fully on board with the idea of Filip Zadina. I'm open to it, but it's not something I'm going to be pounding my fist on the table and demanding that the Rangers do. That is for sure. And of all these UFAs left, we'll continue looking at them off and on. As the offseason continues here, there's a couple other we can maybe check out. I think Daniel Sprong will be at the top of my list, as he is, a lot of your guys' lists as well. Even him, though, not so sure the Rangers would do it, and not so sure they should do it, given some of their in-house candidates that could be looking to make the leap to the NHL, potentially even full-time this upcoming season. So, going to keep everything rolling in just a second. Chris Kreider and Matt Rempe are scheduled to play in a hockey game 1 week from today. I'm going to explain what I mean by that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and even easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. Save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. I do want to talk about something that is very interesting, I think, for a lot of people that are just general fans of hockey that might be anywhere in the area, anywhere in the Northeast here, Connecticut or New York, and that is the Shoulder Check Showcase. It's going to be the second annual, game that they're doing this, the second year in a row that they're going to be doing this at Terry Connors Rink in Stamford, Connecticut. That will be happening this upcoming Thursday, July 25th. I mentioned a second ago, Chris Kreider and Matt Rempe are going to be playing in a game. This is the game that I'm talking about. It's obviously not the NHL, but it's a charity game, and it sounds like both of them are up for doing this. And I attended this last year, hoping to go again this year. Just a wonderful event. Going to explain, what goes into it and what it entails in just a second here. The lot opens at 4 this year, so I recommend getting there early if you can. There's a lot going on outside the rink, before the game actually starts. But among those players, notable players that have already been confirmed to be playing in this upcoming game, you got Chris Kreider, Matt Rempe, Trevor Zegras, Ryan Strome, former Ranger, Cole Caulfield, and Charlie McAvoy. This is according to a tweet from Arthur Staple. Kreider and Zegras were both there last year. They both participated in this. Also representing the Rangers last year, you had Mika Zibanejad, Adam Fox, Barclay Goodrow, Brett Berard, and Jonathan Quick. Quick didn't play in the game, but he was there supporting, the event. And per an Instagram post, it looks like Kevin Shattenkirk, another former Ranger, he was there last year. He's going to be back again this year as well. So what is this game? It's a charity game, once again, that is put on by the HT40 Foundation. I'm going to read something that's straight from the website here. They can explain this even better than I can. HT40 is a foundation dedicated to bringing people together through kindness and compassion to inspire a culture of support through small actions that have a big impact, making certain no one feels left alone. And for some background on this event, the foundation was started, and this game came to be after Hayden Thorson, a former hockey goalie from Darien, Connecticut, tragically took his own life in May of 2022 at the age of just 16. So Hayden, just for some background on the young man himself, somebody that by all accounts was, you watch sports and you hear the term glue guys, right? It sounds like Hayden was a glue guy, not just with his hockey team, but also with his group of friends, just somebody that was very compassionate, somebody that was a friend to everybody. I mean, everybody that knew him talks about him this way, talks about him in these glowing terms. And this is something else that, once again, is straight from the website, because I want to give you guys, the big picture here and let you know who Hayden Thorson was. Straight from the website. Hayden Thorson is the inspiration behind this foundation. Hayden was number 40 on the ice, but above all, he was a friend to all. He was a leader, the hand on your shoulder, the how's it going, that let you know that let you know you weren't on your own. He was the thread between friends, strangers, and even competitors. Though he left us far too early, the way he lived his life is the guiding light of our foundation. And then one other note from the website here. Our goal is to encourage young people to simply be there for their peers through action-oriented initiatives that foster social connectedness, also to create a culture that everyone can feel a part of. So I talked about this last year. We did the same thing last year. I did an episode where we talked about the shoulder check showcase before it happened. And then, of course, I did a full episode the night of, I think it was, after the game had concluded and, once I had gotten home and everything. But it's an organization with a very simple message, but I think a very powerful message as well, that, you just make sure you're there for each other. You make sure that nobody feels alone and nobody feels lonely, and just watch each other's backs. And again, simple message, but a very important one as well. And as far as the game itself, it's 3-on-3. You have NHL players. There's some AHL players, PWHL players. There's not going to be any hitting. I mean, that's to be expected. It's a charity game. It's a lot of fun and a festive environment for sure. Not a ton of defense being played either. But the players that show up for this, it's not a big rink. This rink only holds, I think the maximum is under 2,000 people. And it was packed to the rafters when I was there for this last year. And I would assume it'll probably be the same deal this year as well. And I cannot, recommend it enough. I can't possibly recommend it enough. It really is a wonderful event. And you get to see some of your favorite Rangers and some of the best players in the NHL. Trevor Zegras is going to be there up close and personal. And again, it is for a wonderful cause. And as I mentioned, the players seem to really enjoy doing this. I'm curious to see who else will be there. That list that I gave just a minute or two ago, that's not the full list. We'll see if there's any other Rangers, if there's any other players from around the NHL. Very curious to see how that goes. But I do plan on attending that this year. So if you're going to be there, definitely let me know. And, we can meet up, say hi, talk about the event, talk some Ranger hockey as well. But I did actually want to show, just so you guys kind of have an idea of, the environment and just kind of the vibes there. The game last year, very exciting. It was Team St. Louis against Team Molson. Marty St. Louis was the coach of one team. Matt Molson, former Islander, a couple other teams as well, was the coach for the other team. And the game actually ended up going to a shootout after a goal by Adam Fox. Fox scored on a redirection with 2 seconds to go, and the crowd's chanting shootout, shootout. I don't even know if that rule is in place, but, that's what they did. They went to a shootout, and there was a video that I took of Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad both attempting to score in a shootout. And Kreider just made an absolutely ridiculous move here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as long as I can figure out how to do this here. So we're going to share screen again, just so everybody kind of has an idea of what the game is like and the vibes in the rink. So here we go. This is from once again last year. Let's go ahead and share this. Yeah, let's full screen it too. And here we go. See, that was quite the move by Chris Kreider there, was it not? I don't think I've ever seen him pull that out in an NHL game, but maybe he's keeping it in his back pocket for when he really needs it. And for anybody listening on audio, you at least got the sounds of it. If you want to check out the episode a little bit later on YouTube, it's obviously going to be toward the tail end of this episode. But again, just a wonderful event. It's so cool to see these NHL players, and it's just so cool to see so many people coming together for, again, a very simple but a very, very powerful message. And again, I, for one, am very much looking to forward to attending this upcoming season. Can't wait to be there and just take it all in once again, because it really was a wonderful event when I went last year. I figure we can pretty much call it there for today. The only other thing I want to do is I want to mention again something that I talked about in the last episode. So we've done this a couple of times the last couple of seasons when the Rangers score, a big time playoff overtime goal. I have you guys write in, share your experiences with me, and then I read that on a future episode of Locked On New York Rangers. We've done it with the Panarin Game 7 overtime winner against the Penguins. We've done it for the Derek Stepan Game 7 overtime winner against the Washington Capitals. And what I'd like to do this year, we didn't have any Game 7 winners, but we had 4 overtime winners for the Rangers that were scored. So if you can remember where you were, what you were doing, who you were with during any of the 4 New York Ranger overtime goals that were scored in this playoff run, definitely send it my way. I'd be happy to share on a future episode of Locked On New York Rangers. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, there's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.